Jimmy Stein's very famous or infamous roster countdown rolls on today.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's moi. Yeah, I screwed up my own intro. I can't do it. I don't know why I threw in some
I didn't know you were bilingual. I've known you forever, and you're bilingual. We find out today. Of course, you do have French cousins.
I am not bilingual. I'm married, Jimmy. Oh, wait a minute. That is not what I mean. Anyway, let me just start over. Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. We'll talk about Mazda in just a little bit. Thank you every day for being here today because you help make Locked On the number one sports podcast network there is. We appreciate you. So, Jimmy, a lot to talk about. Greg Sankey opens his big mouth. And we're also going to talk a little recruiting, maybe talk about, look at the low end. You know, everybody loves to talk about the big boys you sign. What about the low end you signed? And also some, new 2027 stuff and all that. But let's start with your roster countdown and one, Mr. Kaden Strayhorn.
Yeah, isn't that fun? Today is a fun day because we've been doing two a day for a while, but now we've caught up to what the countdown really represents, which is a countdown until the start of spring practice. We're just 31 days away from the start of spring practice, and the 31st ranked player on our spring roster countdown is Kaden Strayhorn, the transfer from Michigan. Notice I have him a spot or two higher than Jackson Lloyd and Ty Haywood. That's interesting in the sense that all three are redshirt freshman offensive linemen, and all three are competing for spots. The reason I have Strayhorn slightly ahead of Lloyd and Haywood is I think he's got a slightly better chance than the other two of winning a starting job. Now, I do think all three could start. Maybe one of them starts. Strayhorn's going to contend to start at center. His main competition will be Racin Delgatti, who's the transfer from Cal Poly. Y'all may notice, those of you who watch every day, we haven't got to Delgatti yet, so that should give you a clue about who I think is going to win the job. But I do think Kaden Strayhorn is a serious contender to win the starting center job, despite the fact Delgatti's 2 years older and has more playing experience at that lower level. Strayhorn was a really good prospect out of IMG, came to Michigan, which I think is maybe the best offensive line program in college football. He didn't play much in his freshman year, but he was close to playing time, which shows that in the bowl game, they had an opt-out or two. Then somebody got hurt. So Strayhorn ends up playing a lot of the bowl game against Texas. One of the reasons I have him up this high, one of the reasons Alabama's so high on him, is the tape of that Texas game. PFF graded him at right at 60% for the game, which might not sound great, but it's actually pretty good. For instance, Michael Carroll graded at 64% for the entire season at right tackle, and we're very high on Michael Carroll, right? Strayhorn just behind that, 60% against the University of Texas in a bowl game. So they're high on Strayhorn. Strayhorn liked Alabama a lot out of IMG, but chose Michigan. I found this interesting bit of trivia about Strayhorn. Many of you know that Strayhorn's dad played center for Nick Saban at Michigan State, which is interesting, and that's why Strayhorn is an Alabama fan and why they were interested in Alabama and Nick Saban. Nick Saban did offer Strayhorn in the 8th grade. He offered Kaden Strayhorn a scholarship. Strayhorn would end up choosing Michigan. However, most people thought Strayhorn would choose his dad's school, which is Michigan State, because Dad was not only a former player there, he's a bit legendary. He was an all Big Ten center there. Strayhorn's dad was actually, and this is what I didn't know until this week, Strayhorn's dad was on the Michigan State radio broadcast team. He was the sideline guy, like we've used, Rashad Johnson in the past and Damian Square in the past. I think Corey Reamer is our sideline reporter now. Strayhorn's dad was their sideline reporter, and he got fired from Michigan State, and then his son committed to Michigan. I mean, and I don't know, and I think it had to do with Strayhorn's dad being a little critical of the coaching staff, which got fired at Michigan State. But I don't know what all the details are there, the timing of it all. I just thought it was interesting that Strayhorn's dad was a part of the Michigan State radio team. And it was thought when Strayhorn left IMG that he was going to be signing with the Spartans. That didn't happen. He signed with Michigan. His only other official visit was Ohio State. Look, this kid had an 8th grade offer from Alabama. His only official visits were Michigan and Ohio State. And his dad was an all Big Ten center at Michigan State in the late 90s. This is a good prospect. And at 6'3", 310, he's ideally sized. Don't be shocked if Kaden Strayhorn beats out Racin Delgatti and wins the starting center job. It's going to be one heck of a competition this spring. And one of the reasons that we're counting down to the spring, I'm excited about it because of position battles like we'll have here at center.
All right. Before you sold me on this, I was all for Racin Delgatti to win the center because I want to say Delgatti. But now that you've told me Strayhorn's dad was fired by Michigan State and then the coaching staff was fired because he was too critical, I think that's a good story that we got to tell again later in the year. So I'm going straight.
I need more details on that.
I'm sorry.
I need more details on it. Yeah, I need more details. I just kind of know the surface part. I probably shouldn't say too much. I just know the surface end of it. It doesn't matter. It's no reflection at all on the kid. We're thrilled to have him and the dad part of the Alabama family going forward. I do have Delgatti. Spoiler alert: I've got Delgatti a little higher. So I'm projecting today that Racin Delgatti does win the center job and Kaden Strayhorn will be center number 2. Or I think whoever loses the center battle is then going to become a major candidate to start at guard. So if Strayhorn doesn't beat out Delgatti at center, he could end up being a starting guard. He could play either spot. Delgatti can play either spot. I'll go with Delgatti today, but heck, we hadn't even got to spring practice yet. And I hate betting against Strayhorn. I think Strayhorn is a future star, not just a future starter. I think Kaden Strayhorn is a future star at Alabama.
Did I mute myself on that cough?
No? I heard the cough.
Dang it.
There's the irony. There's the irony.
I tried to
You needed a mute. You needed a mute. I have to clear my throat. That's why I'm in the mornings I have to clear, that's why I got to bring the tea to some of these meetings we do here on YouTube.
Leave some tea for the rest of us. What size? Well, how many ounces was that? You don't even do that in ounces.
I didn't fill up the whole thing.
Okay, sure. Yeah. That's the guy who drinks all the time going, I barely even had a beer. I mean, which is also you, ironically.
I would be more likely to drink a full beer out of that cup at some point, but not at 9 a.m. No, that's not me.
Just FYI, I'm going to have a dad moment for a second. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about some recruiting stuff and Greg Sankey. But last night, my daughter's team won their playoff game, and they're playing for the title tonight at Mountain Brook High School. And I was able to capture this video, and I'm very proud of my third grader who's I mean, that's pretty deep for a third grader when they don't call fouls and she's getting hacked all the time. I'm digging.
That's some, that's Ace Austin. I'm telling you, you're raising Ace Austin, the next Ace Austin.
Yeah, and let me say this, by the way, again, before we go to break, big shout out to the Alabama women's team last night, beating a ranked Ole Miss squad that was actually, I think, ranked 13th, and Alabama is ranked. Ace Austin had some huge moments last night. Gosh, I love that girl. I recalled her so many times in high school, and she played for Ayrton, I believe.
Ayrton, and she won, I think, it's 4 straight state championships.
Yeah, it was something ridiculous. I mean, she was unstoppable in high school, unstoppable.
But like a 1A type program. Yeah. So there was a fair question about, she's a 1A player. How's that going to translate? So many of the small school kids don't in multiple sports. She has. She has. Took a hot minute. I don't think she had a great November, December, but boy, she's got it going now. Do you know that Alabama has the most wins over ranked teams in the regular season since like the 90s? At Alabama. I think three wins over ranked teams in the regular season, which is not even halfway over SEC wise.
And I got to say, now that I got a daughter that plays a lot of basketball, I've never been like, hey, y'all get out and support the girls team. Because I mean, I get it, but I'm going to tell you something. When you have a daughter that plays and you go and you're like, this is actually pretty fun. It's actually more pure basketball than the men's game in a lot of ways. But I wish there had been a bigger crowd there because I think this team deserves it. Christy Curry's doing pretty well. I mean, again, she's not Oriyama. She's not Pat Summitt, but she's doing pretty well. And considering the resources, I think she's doing a really good job. So very happy for the team. Very happy. Big win last night. So, okay, that was it. God, thought you were going to have a little something to chime in, but I guess not.
Oh, no.
Let's talk a little FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. Final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close, very, very sadly. By the way, shout out to Will Anderson finishing second for Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL. Amazing. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everybody's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into play, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get 200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started with that Jimmy Stein guarantee. Now I'm going to tell you about TurboTax right here. There it is. Yeah. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to hand things off and just move on with your day. With TurboTax service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. Give me a break. Are you serious? If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, that is. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Also, a Jimmy Stein guarantee. Unbelievable. 2 in a row, huh? All right, so you and I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about the bottom side in terms of star ranking of the Alabama signing class. So, Jimmy, what you got?
Well, I mean, we spend so much time, for instance, talking about Jet Tamala. Understandably, a 5-star quarterback. Second year in a row, Alabama has signed a 5-star quarterback. That's not easy to do in back-to-back groups, but they're excellent evaluators of talent. I mean, I think that kind of explains how that happened, because when you offered Jet Tamala, he wasn't a 5-star. He became one because Alabama did a great job on the evaluation end. But we don't talk about Tayden Kaava, the other quarterback, that's in the class. That I'm telling you what, understand what I'm saying here, because it's narrow. I'm not saying something broad, narrow. In terms of delivering the ball from point A to point B, I like Kaava as much or more than Tamala. Throwing the football from point A to point B. Now, that doesn't count athleticism. It doesn't count intangibles. It doesn't count the whole package. But just delivering the football, I like Kaava a lot. Some other lower-ranked guys, I like Rael Kelly, the safety, big hitter. I don't know that we have enough of that on the roster. The old-school safety, the old knock your block off safety. Now, of course, that's a penalty these days. So you have to rein it in. But real physicality at safety, Rael Kelly, he'll show up with that. Bear Fretwell, friend of the show. Bear Fretwell, he's almost certainly going to redshirt coming off an injury. He's a reclass kid. He plays at the line of scrimmage. I mean, you can see the redshirt coming from a mile away. But I love Bear Fretwell's upside in the long term. I think he's going to be a pro football player, and he's ranked on the lower end of this class. The 3 wide receivers we took all at the end, all very lowly ranked at the time we took them, although Rivals bumped up MJ Mathis to a 4-star, which is kind of shocking to me. But MJ Mathis from Atlanta, Aubrey Walker from Moody, and Amari Saab from the famous Saab brothers. Here's a bet I'm willing to make. One of the 3 is going to be a really good player. And I think it could be anybody's guess as to which one it is. But I like the upside of all 3, and I'm not going to be shocked if any of the 3 become good. It'd be a little surprising if all of them were hits based on the fact that they're all sort of, not highly ranked. But I love the takes in every instance, and I hope one of them becomes a great story. And I'll finish up with Malique Franklin from Daphne. A story about him. I live in in Fairhope part time, and which is right next door to Daphne. For those that don't know, and also grew up in Daphne, so I pay a lot of attention to Daphne's program. And Malique Franklin kind of came out of nowhere, but I became aware of him in September when there was some local talk of how good he was, and I immediately went and watched the huddle tape and heard that he got an offer, I think from Missouri. Missouri loved him early, and I'm a fan of their I think they evaluate as well as anybody. And I watched his tape like back in October, like one game tape on Huddle. And I'm like, oh man, I hate that Alabama's full at defensive line and they're not going to have I thought Alabama's not going to have room for somebody like him. Plus these late bloomers, so many schools are so hesitant to get in on them. So I just kind of like in my head, I never mentioned him on the show. In my head, I'm like, gosh, this kid's going to end up at some place like Missouri, and 3 or 4 years from now, people on the Alabama message boards will be saying, did y'all know this great kid at Missouri is from Daphne, Alabama? But lo and behold, Alabama knew all about him. Kenny King was a big help there, his coach, his former Alabama player. And lo and behold, Malique Franklin ends up at Alabama. I couldn't have been happier because the kid that I saw, even the end of September, I'm like, oh, I hate Alabama's not going to have the room for him. Ends up they did. So, I'm also very high on Malique Franklin. I think the low end of this Alabama class has multiple players who could end up being hits, and it's awesome. All these players cost a certain amount. When a player you didn't spend a lot on becomes a big deal, that's a home run in the way recruiting works, right? The guy you spend a lot of money on, he needs to be good. The guys you don't spend a lot of money on, they're like bonus. They're gravy. They're the reason they can put you over the top. It's kind of like when the NFL team has a young quarterback who's on like his rookie contract and the team's really good. You can just build around it because you save some money there, but it's kind of the same concept. Very excited about many of these guys on what you would call the low end of the class.
Speaking of guys who I'd consider on the low end, there's A.J. Pauley, who's a defensive lineman from McGill-Tulane. He's a 2027 guy, unranked as of the moment, but he's 6'5", 260. Alabama has offered him. This could be a situation like the 2026 defensive lineman, like Malique. So it could certainly be that way. And again, like you said on Missouri being great evaluators, it's more important than ever. I'm going to tell you something. I almost trust a Missouri or somebody like that evaluation more than I trust, say, at Ohio State. Ohio State's going to go get the best of the best. It's not a big deal. But Missouri's got to find that guy that maybe ain't going to command the big dollars, but they know is awesome. Like they see something, and then you sort of got to appreciate their evaluations, like you said.
Yeah, they're good. Schools like Missouri and Drinkwitz and his staff, I think they're very good at signing the guys that don't have the Alabama, Ohio State, Texas type offers, but they know are going to be as good as those kids that Alabama, Texas, and Ohio State are taking. And of course, they're not going to hit on every single one of them, and they're not going to end up with a roster that looks like Alabama's. But their top 20 players, their top 30 players can play with anybody. That's why Missouri has been a consistent top 25 team under Drinkwitz. I think they're excellent evaluators. That's a great point. You're not going to go head to head with Missouri for 5 stars, but if they find a 3-star or low rank 4-star, you can bet that the evaluation's pretty solid there.
No doubt about it. Well, look, we got to talk about the Bediako thing. By the time a lot of people watch this, it may be settled, and we may have to do something really quickly about that once it's settled. It's not looking good for Bediako, I'll be honest with you. And one of the reasons I don't think it's looking good is because the SEC commissioner opened his mouth. Let's talk a little Mazda. Look, this is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen, look, there's a lot of folks like that. Hey, look, let's just say Courtney Morgan. How about that? He shows a lot more than what people know.
I like it.
He reminds us daily of what it takes to raise the bar. He's a great evaluator, great recruiter. It's that extra work off the field and off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, that I never quit attitude. We put that same passion into every model over here at Mazda. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. I don't care what Jimmy says.
Is that the opposite of a Jimmy Stein guarantee?
It's a Jimmy Stein cut down. Did anybody else used to do this when I was in school, like grade school? Now, that was back in the 80s. Like, if somebody cut somebody else down, they would go, I don't know why. I never understood that. Why you turn the wrist on the forehead and make the little, I don't know. I doubt anybody else did it. It sounds like an Alex City thing by the look on your face.
I've never seen it in my life, but I don't get out much.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, Alex City is a little different. I mean, if anybody's watching this from Alex City, they're like, yeah, he's onto something. We're a little different. Okay. So Greg Sankey came out and essentially said, yeah, I'm not siding with Charles Bediako on this one. And I'm going to tell you something. I mean, it sounded like I was going to be mad at Greg Sankey. I'm really not. I get it. I totally get it. I understand why people don't want it. I understand why it makes people mad. Yeah, I also totally get why Nate Oates is doing everything he can do to make his team better. So, I mean, don't give me this, oh, what a dirty he took a shot, man. You take a shot on things, and you see what happens. And
he may win. As we're recording this, we don't know the outcome of the.
We don't know, but I'm doubtful.
I also feel like there's some anti-Bediako momentum. Here's one point about Sankey, and I know this is going to be an unpopular thing, but heck, read the YouTube comments and message boards. Sometimes I'm just unpopular. So here, I'll add fuel to the fire. Look, Greg Sankey doesn't work. When people say, how can Sankey do this? Why doesn't Greg Byrne pick up the phone and cuss him out? And maybe that did happen, but I don't know. But what people have to realize, Greg Sankey has an employer. And people think, who does he work for? College football? He works for 16 university presidents. The university presidents, all 16, not Alabama, all 16. And sometimes think of him as Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell also has an employer, 32 NFL owners. That's who Goodell works for. He doesn't work for the NFL. He works for 32 NFL owners. Sometimes a team does something, or an owner does something, an organization does something, and Goodell's got to come down on him. Why does he do that? Because the other 31 want him to. Because the other 31 demand some sort of order. When I heard that Sankey filed the affidavit, to me, my thought immediately went to this. The other 15 SEC schools wanted him to do that. Or there is a solid consensus of SEC schools that wanted Sankey to take a public anti-Alabama, anti-Bediako stance. It's not Greg Sankey doing this on his own, and all 16 SEC university presidents are upset with him today. No, I think Alabama's president might be upset with him today, but the majority of the other SEC, this is what they wanted. Now, what frustrates me a little bit is the SEC is chock full of European pros, and Sankey has not gone after them. That's the part that upsets me a little bit, because it seems that Sankey is also drawing an unfair distinction, because I think all of the pros should be ineligible. All of them. European pros, G League, all of them should be ineligible. The reason I'm sort of pro Alabama and Bediako is that they let all the European pros play. And I don't see enough of a difference to say, okay, this league, you should be eligible, in this league you shouldn't be. And every argument that you make about why Bediako shouldn't be playing, you can shoot down. For instance, you could say, no, Bediako played in the G League. You can't have G League guys. There's 3 other G League guys playing college basketball right now. 3 others. Bediako's not the only one. 3 other players that have played in the G League are eligible to play college basketball by the NCAA's own decision. And we're like, no, that's not why Bediako stayed in the draft, and that made it. He chose to leave college basketball and enter the draft. So did the Baylor kid. The NCAA made him eligible. So I'm saying, so every argument you have about why Bediako shouldn't be playing, the NCAA themselves has said someone's eligible in a similar situation. So that's why I don't think Nate Oates is crazy. I don't think Nate Oates is evil. I don't think Alabama's evil. I think Alabama's saying our case is not distinguishable enough from these other cases, and it's a reasonable question. But that being said, I think, as I've said from the very beginning, all the pros should be out. And a lot of people won't remember, and we're not smart enough to know how to go back and roll the tape, Luke. But if we went back and rolled the tape, as people could do if they were smarter than us, they would see the night that the Baylor case came down, me and you both said on this show, the night that the Baylor case, we were upset about it. I was against it. And we said, it's the consequences that will flow from this is the problem. Yes. It's not just this case. And what consequences flowed from it? Who knew it would be Alabama and Bediako? But the Bediako case was a direct result of what happened in the Baylor case. And I didn't see the Big 12 commissioner, speaking out against Baylor. So in that sense, I'm upset. But on the other hand, I'm not, because this isn't Greg Sankey going rogue. This is Greg Sankey doing the bidding for his bosses, the 16 university presidents in the SEC.
And in the end, I think what Greg Sankey says is correct, that this is too far. But our point is we had already passed too far. So don't tell me it's too far when we're way past too far. Now, what we have to do is go back. And here's this, again, people are going to say, well, of course you think this, you're an Alabama fan. Here would be my solution, that all the Euros, all Bediako, Baylor guy, maybe even that Amari Bailey who's taking visits now, who actually played for the Charlotte Hornets.
In the NBA. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if he can even play this year because of the way school is, but everybody's eligible the rest of this year. And then next year, no pros. No pros at all. Not a one, not a European. I'm tired of people telling me Europe is different than the G League. And so what? If I never understood, like, people say, well, he actually signed a contract. That didn't automatically make him better. I mean, I'm just saying, now that there's a lot of money at stake too, I mean, you're essentially saying, hey, he can't come back and make a living, and he's within his window. There is some precedence for this to take place. It's not the dumbest thing that's ever happened. That's what I'm tired of people saying. Again, I love Doug Amos, whose show I go on. He said he was basically disgusted by this. And I said, I feel like that's a bit hyperbolic. I mean, were you disgusted with Pavia? Were you disgusted? Yeah. Are you disgusted with Aguilar now? I mean, look, are you disgusted with the Baylor guy? Are you disgusted with all? I mean, everybody is pushing the envelope as far as they can to see what happens. And look, if he's ruled ineligible, more so be it. I'm not. My feelings aren't hurt. I get it. Right. I understand. And if in my world you wouldn't be able to do it, my world is this: you have 5 years to play 5. I don't care if you get hurt. I don't care if you got an auntie that's sick. I don't care what happens. You have one free transfer. You can transfer one time, no penalty, one time in those 5 years. If you want to transfer any other time, you have to sit out a year, and it counts towards your 5. I think that would bring continuity to the sport. I think that would help development overall. I think that would give some security to the coaches and other staff. And I think that would make things be a little bit more synergetic throughout college football. And I think it's very easy to do that. And that is something, now that may have to be collectively bargained. And if that's the case, then that's going to open up a whole new can of worms. But if we go there, so be it. I just want to have some rules we can all understand. We don't really understand targeting. We don't even know what a catch is anymore. So let's go ahead and say you have 5 years to play 5. I don't care if you get hurt in the first game of every year. That is tough luck. That is life. That's what people are saying about Bediako. It's life. Things have consequences. Well, it has. If you played pro in Europe, it has consequences. You could have come over here. You could have come over here and played college ball.
That's the worst. I saw several people have argued that these European kids, they don't have college basketball over there. They don't have the options. They have to go pro. No, they don't. They can come to America. They can come to America and play college basketball, go to school for free, get a university education while they're playing basketball. Oh, and get paid to play. So they do have the option of coming to America. If they're good enough to go pro in Europe, they're good enough to play somewhere in some college in America. So I just completely disagree with that take.
And my final thing is, if somebody would say, well, that's not really fair, they can't, and we can't, and he can't. Is it fair that LeBron James was 6'8", 225 pounds at age 16, and that Jimmy Stein is not? That's just life. That LeBron James made more last week than Jimmy and I make combined in a year. I mean, is that fair? No, but we all understand it. So is it fair that you say, well, you can't have medical red shirts anymore? Some people might say, no, that's not fair. What if this, what if that? Let's just have a rule and go with it. Let's quit having all this ambiguity. That's what I'm saying. So anyway, look, when the Bediako decision comes down, we may try and go do a quick live thing for it. We hope we can. We'll see. And also, there's going to be a crossover later today with me and one Zach Blackerby about the Iron Bowl of basketball. But until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.